that's where we're at right now. So for one more day, we find out why Nigeria is still battling with what the WHO has called the disease of poverty, cholera. In 2024, the death toll keeps rising, and those are the ones that are confirmed or reported officially. One wonders what's happening behind the scenes. So let's speak with an expert again this morning to equip you with the right information you need during these times. We're joined by Dr. Alera Roberts. She's an associate professor of public health, College of Medicine, Unilag, and past vice president, Association of Public Health Physicians of Nigeria, Lagos chapter. She's right here with us in our Lagos studio. Good morning, madam.
Good morning. Nice to have you here again.
Here we are again.
I know.
This time, disease of poverty. And I know that alone just shocks you. But again, when you look at the indices, it's maybe not shocking. But we're in 2024. We expected that we'll have gone ahead of all of this, especially because COVID-19 came and said it's prepared our health system to fight, others. But here we are right now. But let's get a general sense of how you are internalizing this as a public health personnel before we talk about the whys, the whats, and the rest.
It's very difficult to say at this point how any one of us as public health physicians would be internalizing this, because it's so painful to have a situation where we're saying, I told you so.
Right.
Because this is essentially what the situation is. When we were dealing with, let's go back to Ebola, 2014, 10 years ago. It exposed gaps in our health system, and we had the opportunities which we took to address some of those gaps. And I'm going to say a big shout out here to the army of epidemiologists, field epidemiologists and laboratory technicians we had, who with their work on polio eradication, can you see how everything gets linked?
Right.
On polio eradication, were able to help us with that 93-day wonder of Ebola, and we continued along that line. The health sector continued along that line to strengthen parts of the health sector to be able to deal with such challenges, because invariably the challenges will continue to come. That we know. What are you going to do about it? You cannot tell me that you are living in a house, they say armed robbers are on the rampage. You have a window that has not been fixed, and then you still don't fix it. And then you start complaining, armed robbers broke into my house. People will ask you questions. And that's exactly what we've done. We rolled on from Ebola, COVID came, we again took the opportunity, we kept calling and shouting and took the opportunity to ramp up those gaps in the health sector. And the major gap we have is access, universal access to care. That is the major gap. Now, the DG, I was just listening to him shortly before we came on, and he said something that's very key. Many of these things are outside of the health sector. So let's take cholera case in point. Water supply. Is that doctors and nurses, physiotherapists, pharmacists? No. Water supply is critical. Access to clean water is critical. Access to knowledge of what to do in terms of sanitation is critical. You cannot have a situation where you are living in a place where people are defecating into the same water that you are collecting to cook food, wash plates, and you tell me that you have an adequate water supply. And yet, with all the urban slums you see around us in Lagos, that's what we are seeing.
And the government has said that, tiger nut sellers, particularly the ones that are not regulated on the streets, are partly responsible for this. And it ties to the point you're making. They use water to make the tiger nut. Where did they get the water from?
Good question.
What process did they go through? Who's even deciding whether or not they are producing this in a clean environment? So we really need to tackle this from the base. And you talked about access to healthcare. It's one thing to get infected. It's another thing to seek treatment and to have that treatment close by. Exactly.
So this is a typical example, because people underestimate the speed with which a cholera episode with dehydration can kill an adult. And I'm sorry to use you as an example, but my students are so used to this. Sir, please be upstanding for 1 second.
Oh, absolutely.
Look at a well-built, robust, healthy, young male adult. God forbid, sir. Please, you may be seated.
Oh, I can sit now?
Yes, you can.
Oh, I thought I was going to stand.
I just needed everybody to see the robustness of this healthy young male adult. young male adult in his income-generating years. God forbid evil, cholera epidemic. Number one, he won't survive. Number two, he'll be dead within 24 to 48 hours. Because in the first 24 hours, he'll need to put away 8 bottles.
That's a hypothetical person we're talking about.
Hypothetical.
Yeah, no.
Very allegedly hypothetical. Not 8 bottles like this. Somebody who is vomiting in 24 hours. Can you put away 8 bottles of this as you are now?
Just this nice.
Thank you very much. By the time you've done 2.5, you are like, that's it. I don't need water again until next week, Monday. And that is what people do not take into consideration. The speed with which he will need to get access, the person would need to get access to adequate care that can put in an intravenous line. There's peripheral vein collapse. Do you understand? Now, we've all gone to parties, we've come back, and the next day we've had a bit of a tummy, and we are like, oh my goodness, and then you go to the loo 2, 3, 4 times, and you're all right. That's how it starts. And we're like, oh, done this, been there, done that. I know how to handle this. You do not.
So at what point do you know how to handle?
You don't.
At what point?
There's a cholera epidemic going on. If anybody around you has a funny tummy and has started stooling and vomiting, the time to go to hospital was 2 hours ago.
You know, so Doc, water supply, potable water supply is really at the heart of this, you know, the management of this epidemic. But you know, for a lot of people, they provide their own water pretty much in this country. But some governments believe that the provision of public water, you know, in communities is their own definition of water supply, sadly so. Is that sufficient to help manage this public health emergency, which appears to be the next one?
It's a very good question you are asking. So, you know, when we look at what is going on there, the question is that here is a water carrier collecting water from essentially a public tap. That water would have come through the system. At some point in the system, it needs to have been chlorinated. You remember that trip you made in primary school to Iju Water Works, where they showed you the 4 tanks and they showed you the chlorination process? Well, my cousin showed me an article 2 days ago. It's costing 17 million naira to clear 1 container of chlorinated tablets.
In Nigeria?
17 million naira?
Yes, sir, in Nigeria.
What's the size of the container?
40-foot container. So now, what is the quality of water coming out of that tap?
So the back of the tap, you know...
Thank you very much.
Infested by algae, I believe.
Oh. So this is what we are talking about. Now, let's even give the government its due. It provides public water supply in communities that it knows about. One of the things we have seen in the recent 2 administrations is that there's been this upsurge of unrecognized urban areas, peri-urban slums, we call them. People just flooding into Lagos State. And I think the now DG governor of NCDC, who was the then Commissioner of Health, was talking about 100,000 people coming into Lagos on a daily basis who need water, sanitation, accommodation, education, who are unregistered. They are not captured on any database, so their own private details are not available for 100 naira. Nobody knows who they are or where they're living. Is there going to be a water supply there? Is there going to be electricity? Is there going to be anything that will enable them to take care of themselves? Are there going to be primary health care centers there that are staffed, equipped? These are the unrecognized peri-urban and urban slums that we're talking about. Forget that famous one by the University of Lagos.
Well, which also brings me to my next question. We talked about chlorinating or sanitizing public tanks, but as individuals, for us, we provide our own water ourselves. Should we also be thinking about sanitizing our tanks also as individuals? And how often should that be? For anyone listening right now, who I'm sure some people don't even know, have never brought down those tanks. They just stay up there for many, many years. How often should these tanks be sanitized?
It's a bit difficult to say how often. I don't think there's a blanket rule. I would certainly do it once a quarter. I do mine once a quarter, but that's because my household is small. Our use is a little, is not so much. But because of that, like you quite rightly said, algae could grow. And then, of course, in the rainy season, you may want to do it a bit more frequently. More importantly is at the point of use, what kind of water are you using and where does it come from? And what do you do? So right now is not the time to be drinking garri. Right now is the time to be eating eba. So that you boil the water very well before putting the garri inside it.
But you could boil the water for garri.
And
allow it
to cool down.
People who cannot do without garri. That's what
He's just speaking for himself. He can't do it.
Yeah, I own it. I love my garri once in a while.
Yeah. And then even then, be careful, even the ice blocks. Because you're not going to boil. And I hope you're not on Band-Aid electricity. That's
on bandit electricity.
So you're boiling the water that even goes into the ice trays to go into the freezer. So these are all things that you now have to think about. That what strata of the population, and notice my hands are going progressively downwards, can do all that.
Can
chlorinate, boil, disinfect,
sanitize,
and in this, all in the time frame of trying to even generate an income which you can use to pay your accommodation, electricity, transport to and from work, security, food. We didn't even talk about what. Did you say 3 tomatoes for 1,000 naira?
1,000 naira.
I heard you this morning and I thought I was still dreaming.
No, since last week, I believe, early last week, 3 tomatoes for 1,000 naira. About 5 of the bell pepper for 1,000 naira as well.
So we're not even getting people eating well enough to get enough antioxidants and elements into their body to keep their immune status at a healthy level.
But don't be too alarmed. I think it's just the area. Some areas you get 3, but some you get up to 10.
But Doc, let's revisit, what the Lagos State government is reporting to be the cause of the outbreak here. And, that comes with a number of implications that I want you to speak to, which is the monitoring of the Food and Drugs Agency. Is this a matter of inadequate staff, which NAFDAC has consistently repeated, and or has NAFDAC been caught napping somewhere there in terms of the monitoring of these foods and drinks?
Sadly, it is. It is, in the sense that there's inadequate staff. I'm sorry. The truth of the matter is, and I'm ready to stand anywhere and say it, the civil service simply doesn't pay enough to maintain the quality of staff needed to carry out these kind of processes. And this is across board. NAFDAC as part of it. I'm sorry, and that's just the truth of the matter. Because when you look at what the average civil servant, I'm not talking about those who have had to go abroad and supplement their local income with foreign exchange, those of us that are here. So then the second thing is that you're asking them to monitor, so let's practicalize it. You're asking them to monitor food vendors and what they do in the... So I live in Etiosa local government, but the area I've been given to supervise is...
Ikorodu.
Let's even be nearby, Koshofe.
Right.
I'm expected, because this is my daily duties or my schedule of duties according to the Nigerian Gazette, I'm expected to transport myself from my house to my place of work, which will now be Koshofe local government, and go around and supervise and see what they're doing. So, of course, I create a register. Who are the food vendors in this area? I have them listed by name and date and address. The ones that are registered, because you pay for registration. So the woman who was retrenched 2 weeks ago, who suddenly realizes that I can make kunu, I can make zobo, I can be selling for my children to go to school. She's not going to be registered. I'm not going to supervise.
So that's a huge gap then. And we spoke with NCDC last week, right? He was seated right here and he showed us this chart. And I saw on it that we're actually not at the peak just yet.
No.
July, August.
Thank you.
Is the peak.
Yes.
I had a lot, it sent a shockwave down my spine to think that this is even just like the beginning of it. It may get worse July, August. I know that there are challenges with vaccine. You talk about chlorine. It's tough to even clear chlorine at the border. We understand that we don't have enough vaccines. Whether or not people even want to take the vaccines is another thing entirely. So if we're not at the peak yet, what must we do such that what we'll get to the peak of is the peak of prevention, not the peak of the epidemic itself?
There's a lot that needs to happen in terms of curbing the epidemic. And the preventive practices need to go into place now. So we do need to look at that water supply issue. We do need to look at sanitation. We do need to keep doing what we're doing now, creating awareness and educating people. It's too late for a lot of primary school children because they're going to go on holidays in another 2-3 weeks. So that captive audience where we can be teaching children hand washing and water supply, we're not going to have in another 2-3 weeks. They're not going to be in school. So we need to continue this education and awareness, making people knowledgeable about their sanitation and refuse practices. And all this is out of the health sector. A doctor cannot come and be teaching you how to dispose of your refuse. You won't even listen because you need to have first been in the doctor's office sick for the doctor to be talking to you. We want to be talking to them before they even get to the hospital. So people need to be very, very, very knowledgeable about safe sanitation practices. And having said all this, big English, technical jargon, how do we practicalize it? When you now have people who will not even pay the PSP. I'm talking Lagos State now. The private, is it private sector?
Something like that.
Something, private sanitation, whatever. PSP.
Providers.
Yes, providers. Loma. All these things come at a cost. When I'm looking for, okay, did you say 10 tomatoes for 1,000 naira? You tell me that's 10 tomatoes or pay Loma. What am I going to do? My children are crying with hunger. What am I honestly going to do? How do I practicalize this? So you've got the flies, you've got the refuse waste seeping into the groundwater, where I've dug a shallow well to draw water to cook and clean with. You've got people defecating openly everywhere.
I was going to say that, because we used to have Wooly then they would check if you have
Are you paying them enough salary to stay in the job? All these things are gazetted. All these, there are job openings. Do you want to come? There are job openings everywhere.
I'm doing my bit here, and I love
Doc,
the bit.
As far as this next public health emergency, you've talked about the preventive aspect, and it seems as if Nigeria has failed on that. But let's look at treatment. I was chatting with one of the government advisors in Abia State over the weekend, and she provided assurance that there were rapid diagnostics kits in all of the local government areas. I wonder how plausible that is. But if that were the case, from the point of view of a public health physician, are you confident that in all 774 local government areas and all primary health care centers, there is a level of preparedness that is guaranteed to address this cholera outbreak, which is a critical question, Doc?
I'm laughing. You know very well that I am supremely confident there is not. There is not. I can point to local governments in Lagos, the first states of Nigeria, that do not have. Look at this on the screen. Where do we get this from? Is it the infusion fluid we're talking about? Is it the giving sets? Do you realize the giving set? Production and availability of the giving set is a problem. Is it the cannulae that we need? considering that the ages that are most susceptible are the under 5s and over 65s that have tiny, tiny veins? Is it the trained personnel who can put... I cannot remember how to put in a cannula. I'm going to rely on those lovely young doctors and nurses just coming out of school who have done so many, they are proficient at it. Where are they? Then you want to tell me 700 and... Let's start with 74 local government areas first. I'm supremely confident it is not possible. Let's even look at that issue that the DG raised about oral vaccination. It's oral. There's no problem about taking it. If you ask a mother to give it to her child at the immunization dates, 6 weeks, they will do so happily. Anything, my child must not die. It is not my portion to bury my child. The world is looking at producing 50 million doses for 2024 for the global stockpile. How many Nigerians are we? Where will 50 million doses go in one country? That's even assuming WHO and Gavi give us everything. It's still nothing. Drop in the ocean. So we're still going to have to be looking at the wider preventive measures. And we're already being caught napping.
All right. So since we do not seem to have help from anywhere, not from government, from other sectors,
we must
protecting
have help from
ourselves.
Government.
Well,
we must have
point,
help. We must hold government accountable to their duties.
But
we must have help
ourselves
from government.
So for the sake of creating awareness, let's talk about some of these serious symptoms. What do you need to see to rush to the hospital? And then, even after that, how can you prevent cholera from reaching you?
That's a fantastic question. The problem with cholera is that it's an effortless, what we call an effortless rice water diarrhea. You don't get those cramps that you get with gastroenteritis from bad food, for example, party food. From the first, at least the second episode, start going to hospital. Because the problem with the cholera is that it attacks the lining of the intestine and makes, so that lining loses its integrity, and it means everything in the body is rushing into the intestine, filling the intestine and rushing out either upwards or downwards, effortlessly. So the minute you see one episode, before it gets to the second and third, and those can come in rapid succession. And that is the danger. Please get to a health center that has the capacity to put in a cannula, because the second danger is that you get so dehydrated, all the veins collapse. Then we can't even it's so difficult to put in a cannula. And we need to start rushing in the fluid. So there's no time to waste. While we are sitting here creating awareness, if anybody in your house, your loved one, your neighbor is having that kind of problem, please find any means. And then make sure that the feces and the vomiters is disposed of properly, covered up, buried. You use what's that solution that hypochlorite solution that we used to use, and wash everything clean so that everywhere becomes clean. Because the next thing you don't want are flies settling on it and carrying it to food nearby and whatnot, utensils, cooking utensils there. You don't want that. So that level of prevention at the individual, family, and community level is imperative. It needs to start now. Start cleaning your compounds, your households. Start cleaning up. Flies are your enemy. Open defecation is your enemy. Don't encourage it. Wow.
There's a lot to soak in, and I do hope that it's hitting home. Because the tendency to feel, oh, this is a disease of the poor. It's for the rural areas, the slums, right? And just think you'll never get to the ones who are, well-to-do. But if you've seen water supply of late and where you're getting your water from and what's happening in your tank, then you may need to think again. So you said government must show up.
Yes.
Whether or not they like it. This is their responsibility.
Must be, yes.
So let's
we're talking water supply, we're talking works, and we're talking refuse sanitation, we're talking education. Even before we get to the health sector, we're talking about government addressing what we call the social determinants of health. That's what we're talking about. Even transportation is involved.
I want us to break it down properly, because there's a tendency for people to hide behind government. So the state governments are hiding behind federal government, thinking, oh, they're talking to federal government. Then the local governments are hiding behind the state governments and are hiding behind the federal government.
And that's been our
it's not really penetrating. So
yes.
Let's speak to them. How would you rate, for example, the Federal Ministry of Health, the State's Ministry of Health, the PHCs? How would you rate them?
Okay, I'm going to flip it, because I always start from the individual.
All right.
So what am I going to do? Where do I go? Where is my nearest PHC? And I remember from COVID, I kept asking people, do you know where your nearest PHC is and who your medical officer of health for your adubo, your neighborhood?
In case of emergency. In
case of emergency. This is something you just need to know. So for me, I want to know where my PHC is. Who is there? Is it manned? Okay, if mine is not manned, how will I get to the nearest one that is manned? I want to know where I am getting my water supply from. How can I? So there's a quick trick that we learned, you know, in school. And I keep telling people, water in plastic exposed to the sun for 24 hours can be sterilized. So gathering water in plastic like this, or your nylon bags or whatever, and putting it on your rooftop, let sun beat it for 24 hours, you've got it pretty much sterilized. So that is a start. So I have a habit, when we buy water, we leave it outside. I don't know where it came from. I can't guarantee.
But is it scientifically proven?
Oh, yes.
Fantastic.
Oh, yes.
So you don't need chlorine for that one?
No. I'm assuming it's been chlorinated, but no, at least. The sunshine, the UV rays has done quite a lot of work there. So it's one step. This is assuming you don't have the gas and electricity to be boiling.
But the concerns about plastics again, the plastic.
Sorry, sir. The plastic isn't going to kill you in 24 hours.
Right, so it's... You have
I'm sorry, you've got to weigh your pros and cons.
Okay.
You've got to weigh your pros and cons.
So it goes back to government properly disposing of the plastic when you're done with it.
With it, yes.
No, it's even having, you know...
It's even having... I should not have
to
have safe water in a plastic bottle. I grew up drinking tap water.
From your home?
Yes, in Lagos.
But we don't have that. We don't have that anymore.
Thank you. You understand. I grew up hearing my mother call the water company on yes, she had one of the 500,000 NITEL lines, and she could call that water stopped. What is going on? Ma, sorry, ma, we are maintaining the. This was Lagos, 60s and 70s. Anyway, let's not digress. So sorry, where was I? At the individual level. Yeah. So that's what I need to know. Then at the PHC level, that's why I'm going to call the local government chairman into account. Are you funding the primary health care centers and making sure they have what they need? Because if at least the primary health care centers can deliver that first 24 hours of care, somebody has a hope.
Surviving it.
Yes. And it's not just putting several cartons of IV fluid and whatnot. It's having the personnel, trained personnel, who can recognize and initiate treatment. Before we even get to the state government levels to say that, okay, are the state government hospitals ready for the onslaught? But ideally, this is something we can handle at that level. Are the local government chairmen ensuring that their local government areas are clean?
Right.
Refuse is not piled up in areas. Gutters are not overflowing. People are not misusing plastic and dumping it into channels and drains.
Or openly defecating.
Or openly defecating.
And you know,
Dr. Roberts,
just before you go, besides the tiger knot that was responsible, I want you to speak to the growing number of slums in Lagos and what the state government should be doing to manage public health in those areas.
It's very, very difficult, and this is one reason why when they say come and stand for state gubernatorial candidates, I said no, thank you, I can't do that job. It is exceedingly difficult. How do you stop people pouring into Lagos on a daily basis? And 90% of the people pouring into Lagos are looking for one thing. Shall I tell you what it is? Jobs. With jobs, they can access health care. During COVID, we had so many people coming into Lagos looking for health care. And that's, you remember we had an oxygen crisis. How do you stop people coming into Lagos? How do you stop the rural-urban migration? You have to go back to the rural areas and address the problem from there. So how do you want a state governor in Lagos or Port Harcourt or Enugu or any of the big cities that offer hope? How do you want them to stop people coming?
Something to chew on. Well, the governors promised. In fact, they went and campaigned and said, we're going to resolve all of these things. So they have to put their thinking caps on. This is a challenge we have to resolve together, obviously. It's a conversation we need to have. But Dr. Alera Roberts, we'd like to thank you so much for facilitating this conversation. We're glad we're having it, and we'll not stop equipping Nigerians with the information that they need. Dr. Roberts is Associate Professor of Public Health, College of Medicine, UNILAG, past Vice President, Association of Public Health. I'll have said former governorship aspirant.
No way.
He chose not to run. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Never.
This morning. Thank you for your time, madam.
Thank you so much for having me, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll go to break now, and when we return, this is a man that has been described as an encyclopedia. You may have come across his social media videos where he's telling you senators from different parts of the United States and Nigeria and other things. He joins us next on the show. Stay with us.
So, were you wowed? If you were, we're just getting started. Whether it's sports, whether it's politics, or even the traditional institution, our guest today is well versed in that knowledge. Also, if you're low on righteousness, if you're an unwilling soul to be won, he's going to come after you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with us, Mr. Randy Aka. Welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure being here.
Oh, the pleasure is ours.
Phenomenal.
The phenomenal Mr. Kayode, Auntie Bukola, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So, how do you do it? Storing all of that knowledge, first of all. And then when we were growing up, was there anything that pointed to you having such expansive brain capacity?
Thank you once again for being here. Let me not go into the details of my growing up because it's a story for another time. I did something related to medicals, but I should have known if I had proper counseling because I was in the press club even as a science student. I thought I would be a doctor, but I should have done law or something if I had the opportunity to. But I didn't really think this was all a big deal. This video started as a coincidence. A colleague, a friend of mine was reciting state and capital, and they were having issues reciting the states and capital. And I was like, I can tell you the governors of those states, and they would, no, that's not possible. So we did the first video and posted online, and the feedback was massive. So it was then I began to see that really, maybe I should do this thing. So when I got responses from people, so I felt like maybe this is something that a lot of persons do not know or people find interesting. So I have always known it. Politics have been something, humanity has been something I've been passionate about, and leadership. So I pay so much interest to it. So that was how we came about these videos. And then they said, okay, let's go to the US. Let's try this, let's try that. And today we have all those. So it started as a joke, not an intention to put out content like that.
So do you sit down, and pick a topic and study and then, you store the knowledge, or how do you do it?
Most times it is my friends, the people. If you hear the voices at the background and some persons who you see, they tell me, can you tell us this? Would you be able to tell? Okay, I said, okay, let's try. Sometimes, you know, we may miss one or two, but then again, there is no intentional preparation for it.
You just have it.
I think what she's trying to say is, I mean, before these questions come, do you kind of memorize? Do you have to go to this topic, or you know it's politics you want to talk about, so you memorize it? I'm speaking as someone who knows how to memorize easily. I mean, I could read a full book and I'll tell you what it is. But I'm saying, is that how you also started yours? Was that how you learned to begin all of this?
Yes, to an extent, and no, most of them are not planned. Residual knowledge comes in, but then again, if I know that you want to do something, I might look in the news. The person who was there, is he still there, and that kind of thing. Yes, so that revision must always come handy once in a while.
Wow.
So I came across your content over the weekend.
Yes, sir.
And I realized that I'd spent 30 minutes just going through your content, and I'm like, this is wrong, Kaide, you need to repent. So I found this comment on your page, and this is one of your users, your followers, @thereal_aim, saying, honestly, I'm waiting for an interview, for you to have an interview, which is why we're having this. I really want to know, if not all, but little about you. How do you learn and memorize these things? You're amazing. And I think you responded with some emojis. So a lot of people want to understand how your brain works. So do you, and this is help us, do you see those things? Because we're going to ask you some of those questions.
Yes,
so do you see it and you read it out, or how does your brain work? That's what I want to know. How do you envision those answers and pull them out?
Because there's a difference between there's a difference between when you memorize just to remember something, or when you quite understand. They're two different things.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. And from her introduction, she said something about sports and politics and that. Maybe not completely. If you ask me so much about sports, it will be to memorize, to understand. It's just for, not knowledge purposes. But the core of what this is about is my interest in leadership. That is why it sticks. I'm interested. I have a passion for Nigeria, and if you listen to even the speakers that just spoke, Dr. Roberts, Dr. Jide on cholera, we're talking about NIMSI and all of that, you would find out that Nigeria has an existential problem with leadership. It all boils down to leadership. So I'm always interested in who is doing what where, and how do we hold these persons accountable, because they have a means of recycling themselves. The current president was a state governor. He was a senator at some point. The vice president was a senator. So it is that interest in leadership that makes me, so it is more political than maybe other aspects. There are fields you might take me to when we come about engineering, spacecraft and all of that. I won't know so much about that. If I want to learn, I will need to go and read and understand. But I find out that politics and leadership comes easily and naturally. And then when I just find something, if you tell me this, if I see on Channel TV, I see news flash, this is the acting governor of this, it is very difficult for me to forget who it sticks, because I'm interested in following up on what he will do and where he's headed, and how what he does affects the lives of people under his.
I can't wait.
It looks like you have everyone's data. I hope nobody is paying you 100 naira for collecting our data.
In fact,
but how have you been able to channel this into leadership or into something tangible to make a difference?
I couldn't hold my excitement when I saw Mr. Kayode's. Thank you once again for having me. It is a dream come true, because it's almost like, when you continuously see comments, and even on my way here, somebody sees you, okay, this guy, this thing. They will tell you, forget about Nigeria, travel out. You cannot make money from this thing. This does not. And I'm like, no, there should be a way of rewarding. It's not even about me. Intellectuals or whatever, children that are out of school, there are so many of them. So what I'm trying to do is I go out on my own basis, reach out to schools to take, train on how to get retentive memory, and then build the culture of patriotism and interest in government, your civic education, civic rights, voter, your responsibilities to the nation, and how actions of these people are mentioning affect and impact your life directly. So a lot of Nigerians do not like to pay attention to certain things. I was watching a program one time, or a video, somebody was here and was asked who is the IG of police, and somebody said no, and people started tagging me because I had done a video mentioning IGs of police since 1999, and I said it's true. Some Nigerians really will ask you, why should I know the IG of police? How many times have I called the police? Did they respond positively or responsibly? Nigerians do not see a need to know these kind of things. That is why you see lots of comments under my page are like, go and learn tech. Some person will tell you, go and do Yahoo. As profane as it may sound, they will tell you, you can't earn money from this. But I still think that it is important. The resources, I'm doing it on my own, but with time, it will grow into something, you know, better to make people understand that, look, our lives are dependent on government. This is what Dr. Roberts was saying. You asked her, what should she do? She said, we must hold government accountable. Nobody can do it on their own. The actions of these persons affect, we're talking about tomato 3 or 4 or whatever it is, a bag of rice from 15 to 80,000 naira. If we don't pay attention to these things, the painful part about Nigeria is that there is no rock bottom. The fact that it is this bad does not mean it will not get worse. It cannot get worse.
Now I'm wondering if we're talking to a comedian or a public
He's actually,
you know,
one of the things you would appreciate about him is the fact that he's not just, his content is not just content. He calls himself an advocate for a new Nigeria. We want to get into your knowledge.
Yes.
We want to dig into your mind. I have a list of questions for you. So maybe we should start from the National Assembly. Who is the senator representing, I can ask, right?
Please do.
Akwa Ibom South.
Akwa Ibom South, that is Senator Akpanekong Samson. Pardon me, I may not know their senatorial districts for all others, but Akwa Ibom South is Akpanekong Samson, Northwest is the Senate President Gospel Bodak.
I only asked you one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so who is the senator representing Ogun West?
Ogun West should be Senator Adiola Solomon Olamilekan. He used to represent Lagos East, and now he's representing Lagos West. The other ones are Senator Otumba Gbenga Janela and Senator Salisu Afolabi.
We asked you.
Okay.
You're showing off.
You're showing off. What is my middle name?
Your middle name? I will have to say.
No, say it now. No,
you know,
you must say it too.
I will tell you that, but I want to make sure that I first win your soul to Christ. You know, there are many aspects of this
my
thing.
soul has been won to Christ already.
So let's ask randomly. Senator representing Plateau Central.
Plateau Central should be Senator Pam Dachungiwa. The senators from Plateau are Dicket Pam Dachungiwa and Senator Simon Bakula-Long, but I know Simon Bakula-Long is Plateau South. Dicket Plank should be Central, and Pam Dachungiwa should be North. I hope I'm
not even fact checking you, because I really, at this point, I don't care. You proved yourself. So, how many people can you mention in Channels Television that you know in Channels Television? In
Channels Television, I would mention, of course, the very, very delectable, quintessential Auntie Bukola Kuka. She used to be Bukola. I used to know her as Auntie Bukola Samuel Wemimo when she was doing fireworks on TVC and all of that. And I think her birthday is sometime in April 6th or 7th, I don't know. And then I know Uncle
I'm beginning to suspect. What's this about?
Well, he just missed it by 1 day. April 7th.
7th, yes.
He said 6th or 7th.
6th or 7th, yeah.
He said 6th or 7th.
I saw a video of you, one of your birthdays, you were in Tanzania, you did a dance. So that was how it stuck. Kayode Okichono, I think your birthday is October 22nd or something, sometime in October. It should be October 22nd.
You know our birthdays.
And then I know...
Is it 22nd? Really?
Okay, no, I don't want anybody to have this information.
Go on. I told you earlier, he's collecting 100 naira for this thing. Okay.
So, of course, the Yomi Otaigbe, of course, I listen to the news and, you know, you just love to hear those names and it's beautiful to see them. Auntie Anne, those days, Auntie Mokwe Ogun, Chamberlain Oso, Amarachi Ubani, Ijoma Onyato, almost every beautiful.
Let's come back. I don't want to be
Okay, let's do this. Yeah. Past presidents of Nigeria from 1960.
From 1960, sorry.
You need the water.
Our first premier in 1960 was Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, and the Governor General and then President Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. There was a coup in 1996 that brought in Major General Agui Ironsi in January, but it was short-lived. He was then succeeded by General Yakubu Gowon, who was there from then through the civil war until 1975. A coup took him out that brought Murtala Ramat Mohammed from Kano. He died in a coup in 1976. 1976, and then came President General Obasanjo as the military head of state. He was there until 1979, where he brought us back to the Second Republic. President Shehu Shagari. Shagari was there until he started losing, support, and another who toppled him. General Buhari came in, became head of government, and he was toppled in 1985. President General Babangida was there from 1985 until 1993. Tried ill-fated Third Republic. The elections of 1993. June 12th, as we all know it. Then interim government of the late N.S. Olade Ndeshonekon. He was removed in a bloodless coup. General Basha came in and was there from 1993 until 1998, where he also died. Then saw General Abdul Salam Alhaji Abubakar from Niger. He ushered us into the Fourth Republic. President Obasanjo, and then to Yaradua, who unfortunately died in 2010, succeeded by his vice Jonathan, who then sought his own full term in 2011, lost a second term 2015 to President Buhari, and the incumbent president Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
But we would want to ask before you go,
please,
what course did you study in school?
I did basic medical science because I thought I would be a doctor, but I found out I was struggling and with all of that, and I wish now I could just go back to do even history or English or anything.
The beauty. Yeah. This is testament that what you're doing really matters. This is a reward for the work you're doing. You're an advocate for a new Nigeria. You're using your knowledge for good. You're even using it for evangelism. You mentioned local governments. Can we ask you about local governments?
Local government, yes. What?
Can you say the names of local governments in a state, for example?
In Kano, for instance.
Let's take Imo.
Local governments will include Mbise, Olu, Owerri West also, and yes, most of those, Mbise, yes, Mbitolu. I don't know many of the local governments at that level, partly because to be honest with you, Uncle Kayode, this local government system in Nigeria is almost not effective. So they are just, you see what is happening with, you can remove chairmen and put caretaker chairmen. They are not viable. That is what I'm trying to say. Until we have a federal system where the federating units are working, local government chairmen are just appendages and are at the mercy of their governors who, distribute palliatives for them to go and spend. And if we don't fix that, you saw, Dr. Roberts told you, are you funding the PAC? How much is he even collecting? They are shouting of autonomy.
Who is the governor of Katsina?
Katsina State, that is Umaru Diko Rada.
Who is the governor of Benue?
Benue State, that is Reverend Hyacinth Yomimalia from Vandikia local government.
Who is the senator representing Benue South?
Benue, do they have Benue South?
Sorry.
Yes, Senator. I think Senator Abba Patrick Moro, the Senate Minority Leader, former Minister for Interior. There is Senator Titus Tatengizam and Senator Dende Memsai Man.
Well done, Kano.
So what are the three senators
in Kano? Rufai Hanga. The Deputy Senate President Barau Jibrin is from Kano North, and then there is Senator Kawu Samaila.
How much will dollar be tomorrow?
We are praying that it should come down in the name of Jesus Christ. But by tomorrow, call me.
Do you feel like you're oppressing all of you other people? Do you ever feel like you're proud?
I don't even feel like I know anything because I haven't seen that kind of reward. I mean, it's just basic knowledge, and then it doesn't feel special to me. But I hope that it does, and it makes that kind of
that is what has brought you on the stage, and we advise that you keep doing what you're doing. There's a lot of people commenting, actually. This person said Peter Aka definitely has a very high brain power. His retentive memory is unequal. I respect his deep understanding of current affairs in Nigerian politics.
Yes.
I just want to say that you tension a lot of us.
We do too.
We feel that we don't know anything. But I'm glad you're channeling it in the right direction, and I just hope that children can learn and get this retentive memory. It's very important.
And we hope that your vision for a new Nigeria will be what we will all be witnesses to in our lifetime.
Amen. I'm very grateful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Yeah, it's just a round of applause.
Absolutely.
All right.
What a show it's been to open the week, and the beautiful ones have been born. Randy Aka is testament to that. So we'll continue our search for more beautiful ones through the week. Join us again tomorrow. I'm Bukola Koka.
All right, thank you guys for joining us and keeping it all the time. But my name is Anwar. Definitely see you again tomorrow.
His handle is at Randy Peters with a Z across social media. If you want more interest on it, go there. By the way, I know what show is coming up next. It's Sunrise Daily.
Sunrise Daily.
Right here on Channels Television. I'm
and stay safe.
Goodbye.